Good evening, Mountainside. Hope you're having a blessed week. It's been a good start to this week. We've got a couple homeschool groups using the building on Mondays and Tuesdays now as they've begun a new school year. It's crazy how fast the summer has gone by. Talked with Amanda Diggs last night, and compared to my conversation with her over the weekend, she was pretty discouraged. And in fact, I think it's safe to say she was pretty scared. But she's doing so much better. Just FYI, she's receiving a plasma treatment. In fact, she was receiving plasma when I talked with her, and it has something to do with the antibodies in the plasma, and she was already feeling remarkably better. So that's a good thing. But she thanks all of you for your prayers and continues to covet your prayers for her and others that she knows or has met or come into contact with in her hospital stay, because she's not alone. So let's keep praying for this situation. I wanted to share a story with you and then make some points when I'm through. Here goes. A columnist in New York City tells the story of a day when he was riding in a local cab into town with a friend. And when they got out of the cab, the friend said to the driver, "Thank you for the ride. You did a superb job of driving this cab." And the taxi driver seemed stunned for a second. He said, "Are you a wise guy or something?" "No," said the man, "I'm serious. I admire the way you keep your cool in heavy traffic. Not many cab drivers are able to do that. I'm glad I rode your cab today." "Yeah, sure," said the cab driver, and he drove off. And the columnist, he asked his friend, "What was that all about?" He simply said, "I'm trying to bring love back to New York City," said the man. "I believe it's the only thing that can save this city." "You think one man can save New York City?" "It's not one man," said the man. "I believe I've made the taxi driver's day. Suppose he has 20 more fares before he goes off shift. He's going to be nice to those 20 fares because someone was nice to him. And those fares will in turn be kinder to their employees, their shopkeepers, waiters, even their own families. Eventually, the goodwill could spread to at least 1,000 people. Now, that isn't bad, is it? But you're depending on that taxi driver to pass your goodwill on to others." "Well, maybe he won't," said the man, "but I might say something nice to 10 different people today. And if out of 10 I can make 3 happy, then I indirectly influence the attitudes of 3,000 or more." "You're some kind of nut," the columnist said to his friend. "No, that just shows how cynical you've become," said the man. Take postal workers, for instance. The reason so many of them hate their work is because no one is telling them that they're doing a good job. But they are doing a good job. Well, they're not doing a good job because they don't believe anyone cares if they do or not, replied the man. The two continued walking down the street and noticed 5 workmen eating their lunch, and the friend stopped and said, "Wow, you guys, that's some magnificent work you've done. Must be a little difficult and sure looks dangerous." And the workman looked at him suspiciously. "When will this job be done?" the friend asked. "June," growled one of the workmen. "Oh, that's really awesome. That's impressive. You must all be very proud of what you're doing here." And as they walked away, the columnist said to his friend, he said, "I don't think you're doing any good." "On the contrary," said the man, "when those workmen digest my words, they'll feel better about what they are doing, and somehow someone in this city is going to benefit." "But you can't do this alone," said the columnist. "You're just one man." "Well, that may be right, but I'm not discouraged," he said. I'm working hard to enlist others in my campaign." And they continued walking down the street. The columnist said to his friend, he said, "You just smiled at a plain-looking woman. What'd you do that for?" "I know I did. You know what? And if she's a school teacher, her class is going to be in for one fantastic day." Wow. Have you ever thought of just how much influence you have, good or bad, on those that you come into contact with every single day? Literally, in a matter of seconds, you and I leave an impression on whomever we come into contact with. And it's our choice what that impression is. Now, as a Christian, I've always been conscious of what people see in me, and I think even more so as I've gotten older and taken on more roles, especially out there in the public realm, outside of the church. And I would be so crushed if one of my neighbors were to run into one of you and through the conversation, my name came up and they were very surprised when talking to you to find out I was a churchgoer. In fact, they said something like, I would have never guessed that by what I've seen in him over the years. Whoa, that would crush me. Jesus said this, he said, a new command I give you, love one another as I have loved you, so you must love one another. By this, everyone will know that you are my disciples if you love one another. Now, if you remember that passage, that's the night that Jesus washed those apostles' feet, those closest disciples to him. And of course, he was, speaking very specifically to those who know him and believe him. But at the same time, there's plenty of other examples where the emphasis on love extends to anyone that we come into contact with. Take Matthew 14, for instance. You go into the chapter just a little ways and you see where Jesus feeds the 5,000 with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. I mean, he feeds 5,000 people with nearly nothing. Now, obviously, we know that it was a miracle. God intervened into this act of love. But why wouldn't God act in the hearts of some of those whom we come into contact with and show them, after we've showed them some kind of love, gratitude, or simple respect? It's not important that we know which of those hearts is affected, but it is important for us to go out and show God's love. And we do this both inside the body of Christ as well as outside the body, where we find ourselves literally most of the time, each and every week. No one would argue that our demeanor isn't important. Of course it is. In fact, it has a direct effect on our credibility, and the better our credibility, the more likely people will hear us and truly listen to what we have to say. I don't have to tell you how that makes our witness so much more effective. In this time of COVID-19, I am continually, sometimes it's almost daily, running into someone who is stressed to the max. In fact, I had 2 of those kinds of conversations with 2 separate neighbors just this past weekend. Now, I hope and pray that I was a voice of reason and calm for both of those guys. But I do know that if they do not respect me for who I am on an everyday basis, then they basically heard nothing. They were just polite and listened to what I had to say. Yes, what we do matters, and what we can do in Jesus Christ with both confidence and peace is powerful. And that's God. And may we have the faith and trust in him to do that which only he can do when we allow ourselves to be used in his service as we go out each and every day. Hey, have a blessed evening. Thank you for tuning in.